Joining me on this episode is Waterford striker Padraig Amond. Currently sitting on 11 goals in the League of Ireland, Padraig is one of the country's most informed players this season. Having come through the ranks at Shamrock Rovers, he joined Sligo Rovers in 2010 and scored 23 goals that season. His form earned him a move to Portuguese Premier League side Pacos de Ferreira, where he went on to play against Andre Villas Boas Porto side that contained the likes of Joao Moutinho, James Rodriguez, Falcao and Hulk, registering an assist for the equaliser in a 3-3 draw against them. At Grimsby, he played in a winning side in the National League playoff final in Wembley Stadium. Amond also enjoyed a 4-year stint with Newport County. In his time there, he was a part of multiple sensational FA Cup results, including knocking out Leicester City and Middlesbrough, while also scoring in ties against Tottenham and Manchester City. He also gives an exclusive into what Pep Guardiola really said in that famous photo on the pitch at Rodney Parade. Padraig's journey is a sensational League of Ireland success story. This is not one to be missed.
Padraig, thanks so much for joining me. Firstly, how are you getting on? How are you keeping?
Yeah, all good. Enjoying being back home in Ireland. Enjoying having the kids around their kind of extended family as well, and just being back to probably, like, it's funny, it's like where I was 15 years ago before I left Ireland to go to Portugal and then over to England. So really, really good. Enjoying every bit of it.
And obviously you're having such an unbelievable season in the league this season. You're top scorer at the moment with 11 goals in 20 games. How do you feel like the season's gone for yourself personally?
It's gone very well personally, but equally as a team, I think it's gone very well for us, which is probably the most important thing. If I was maybe a lot younger than what I am now, I'd probably be I would have been more thinking about the individual side of it all. But none of that kind of even interests me now. It's kind of, the older you get, the more you realise how you're absolutely nothing without your teammates. So, like, while on paper it looks like I'm having a really good season, it's because of all of my teammates and how well they're playing as well. And we're in a really good position this year, considering we've just been promoted last year. Lads are really after stepping up to the plate, from the first division up to the Premier Division, and they've taken to it with relative ease is the wrong word, but they don't look out of place one bit, which is really, really good. And obviously the manager is a real big part of that, Keith Long. He's been excellent. I think I'd say he's probably one of the most underrated managers in Ireland. You look at what he did with Bohemians when he was manager there, and what he, like, it's even better when you look at it, what finances he probably had available to him at that time, considering where Bohemians were as a club. But he's done brilliant stuff there, and he's just transferred that across to Waterford as well. So as a club, we're very lucky at the minute to have some fantastic young players as well, and have a manager like we do, which is really, really key to the future of the club.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a bit about Keith Long. Like, I know, obviously, like you said, he's done a great job with Bohemians, but for you personally, do you feel like he's getting the best out of you at the moment? Obviously, the numbers you're getting are really impressive.
Yeah. He has his way. He wants to set his team up, and thankfully it suits me at the minute. But it suits not just me; it suits the players he's recruited. He's not just recruited names, or he's not just recruited. He's recruited specific players for specific positions and everything like that. Which is really, really, testament to his ability to recruit players. Again, I go back to the Bohemians. When you see the players he had at Bohemians, probably who were there at that time for very, very, very small money. Like, as I said, considering where the club was, they were coming out of obviously nearly going bankrupt at the time. The fans were after taking over, and obviously now they're in a lot healthier position financially. But part of that is to do with, I suppose, how well Keith did with them, and European football then, and some of the players he's coached as they've gone on to better things across the water as well. And and even over in Ireland, there's some of the top players over here. But yeah, it's he's been brilliant. He's been really, really good. You know, and I hope I get to work for him for quite a long time more.
And speaking of like Europe, you're saying there, obviously you're in the European places at the moment. What do you feel like the aims or the goals are this season for Waterford? Is it to finish in Europe?
It's something we haven't really spoke about. I know it's going to sound really cliche and the last thing you want to hear, but we're trying to take literally every week as it comes. Because you can get carried away at times, and the way the league is and it's so competitive this year. All it takes is 1 week where you've got 3 fixtures. If you win 3 of those games, you shoot up the table. You lose 3 of those games and your rivals win some. You're looking behind you. You could drop 3-4 places. So you don't want to get carried away and start thinking, oh, well, it's all about Europe now. This is what we want to do. Of course, it would be fantastic if we could do that for the club. You know, that would be the icing on the cake. But first and foremost, I think like as when the lads got promoted last year, the first thoughts were right, got to establish themselves as a Premier League club for quite a while, and not be caught into that yo-yo effect, where you're going up and down and up and down, and the club can't really, I suppose, develop as a club if that happens. Now, don't get me wrong, in the dressing room, like, and I'll probably the only one doing this now. When we played Drogheda early in the season, the second game of the season, we won and we went top of the league. And I was just like, lads, get the passports ready. Come on, we're going up. And then are we safe from relegation? You know, every time we get a win, we must be one closer, you know. So you're trying to keep everyone's feet on the ground by doing stuff like that, and trying to make it an enjoyable dressing room to be in, which it is. You know, if we could get Europe, that would be brilliant. But, you know, equally, if we didn't get Europe, it's not like it's a failure of a season. You know what I mean? Like so far, it's been a very good first half of the season, but there's no point doing it for the first half if you're not going to continue it for the second half of the season. And as I said to you, we've got some very, very good young players. We've got some brilliant staff at the club as well. So it would be great to do that. I want to play in Europe if I can. We'll be up against it. But you know, we're happy with how the season has gone so far anyway.
I was trying to go back to when you were younger at the start of your career, like growing up playing youth football. Also, you're coming through Shamrock Rovers. You went to Kildare on loan. Like, talk me through a bit of that time when you were younger and your kind of experiences playing youth football and breaking into the men's game.
Yeah, so I was playing with Shamrock Rovers the whole way up. I had a year away with home farm at under 13 level and a year at Crumlin at under 16 level. Just because the Rovers team, they were playing in the second division these years, so I was playing in the top division in the DDSL, and luckily both years I was there we won the All Ireland. But I was playing with some very, very good players, with Adam Rooney, and it was to be fair, I was with Adam at home farm and at Crumlin, you know, and then Owen Doyle was at Crumlin as well. Mark Byrne, who had a fantastic career over in England as well, and Alan Power, who's played over in Scotland and England as well. So there was 5 of us were on the same team, which was a very, very good team at Crumlin. And then I went back to Rovers at under 17 level, but I skipped under 17s football, but not for any other reason apart from the fact that my brother was playing with the under 18s. So logistically, it just made sense for us, instead of travelling up on a Saturday and a Sunday to Dublin, we were all travelling up at the same time and training during the week at the same time. And that was really important for my development, I think, because I was playing against the older lads. I was obviously good enough to play against the older lads as well. There wasn't an issue or anything like that. But very, very quickly, I kind of broke into the first team squad without realising I was doing it, because I progressed to the under 21s, and after the first under 21 game, I made my debut for the first team on the following Thursday night, I think, up in Athlone, or Friday night up in Athlone, which was a great moment for me, and I just one that kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it. Pat Scully was watching. We were playing St. Pat's in a under 21 game, and Pat Scully was out watching it with Dave Campbell, and two of them really liked what they saw, and straight away I was brought in to the first division squad. And obviously that was a big learning curve for me, because I wasn't used to men's football at that stage. So training with training with the likes of Aidan Price and Ty Purcell, Gerald O'Brien, Barry Murphy, players like that, was really, really important for my development as a player and as a person as well, I think, because they installed values into me at a young age, as well as Pat Scully, like, you know, professionalism and stuff like that. So really, really enjoyed it. Really loved playing for the club. Really loved that first division. That year we were in it, won a trophy, we won the league, like, and I thought, this is brilliant. My first year in football after winning a trophy. We win a trophy every year. This will be fantastic. And then didn't win a trophy for another 10 years, I think. So you take it for granted when you're younger, but no, it was brilliant. It was brilliant for me.
And then your time at Sligo Rovers, obviously you were scoring a lot of goals that time. What was your time at Sligo like then, a couple of years later?
Again, that was fantastic. Look, going back to, you know, some very good players over there as well. Owen Doyle was with us, who I've played with about 5 different clubs. I've played with my Rovers, Crumlin, Rovers again as a first team level, then at Sligo as well. Joseph Endo came in, and again, he was the type of player who came in and transformed the club again, bringing more professionalism to it. Paul Cook was a fantastic manager, getting the best out of all the players, and we just had some really, really good players over there, and everything just clicked for the team and I think the progression of the club. You could see it getting better and better all the time, and even though I was only there for a short space of time, you knew they were going to go on to winning the league or being close to win the league the following year or the year after that. You know, because of the players that they were developing and the way things were probably at the time in the league. It was a good time for them. You know, but it was brilliant to see the club do so well, and they were fantastic for me over there. Fans were, you know, really took to the kind of the club at that time. I know it was a really big soccer town, and that's really important. So it's no coincidence that I think the next couple of years after that were some of the most successful in the club's history, with the players they had available, and the backing the club had. So it was brilliant to be involved in that at the very beginning. Now I'd left I think one of my last games was the semi-final of the League Cup against Shamrock Rovers. So when I just left, and they won the League Cup and the FAI Cup within the next couple of weeks. But obviously, it was too good an opportunity for me to kind of turn down, to go over to Portugal and to play in the Premier League over there and see what that was all about, really.
And yeah, like you said there, you moved to Pacos de Ferreira. Like, that was such an unbelievable move at the time as well. Like, I remember that was a massive story. Like, how did that come about? And like, was that a bit kind of left field for you? Like, was that something that was kind of out of the blue?
Yeah, very, very much so. Again, when I was in Sligo, I was living with Mauro Almeida, and John Dillon, and we were sitting down watching football one evening and just chatting, you know, like as you normally would, like with lads, and we were talking about, you know, John had obviously played in England, and Mauro had played in Portugal and played in Ireland, and he just said to John and myself, like, we all, you know, a throwaway comment, would you ever play? Is it all about playing in England, or would you ever play on the continent? Type thing. Like, what's your thoughts? Because I suppose a young lad growing up, everyone is thinking England was the be all and end all for a lot of people. I remember looking at the time, or like, there was very few Irish players would go across to the continent. You know, it was probably a handful of players when we were growing up. From, say, I know there was a lot in the 80s and Frank Staples and Kevin Moore and Mick McCarthy, Liam Brady was playing, but then there was a gap where no one had gone across, and I think just when I was maybe about 14, 15, 16, Phil Babb, Alan Mann, they went over to Sporting Lisbon, and then Ian Hart was going across to Levante, and Steve Finnan afterwards I think went to Espanyol as well. So like, you were seeing more Irish players going a little bit, and I said to him, like, of course, I'd play anywhere. Like, I'd play anywhere on the continent. I'd play anywhere across the world. I just wanted to play football at whatever the highest level I could play it at. But again, like I said, it was a complete throwaway conversation that might never. Morrow got injured not long after and went back to Portugal for a couple of months. He tore his Achilles, I think it was, and We were playing Shamrock Rovers in the League Cup semi-final, and Morrow was coming back for the game, and he came to the house early and knocked the door, opened it, and there was a fella with him, who big long hair, looked like a movie star, good-looking fella, and he introduced him and said, "Oh, this is such and such. He's coming over to watch the games." And I was like, "All right, no problem." Played the game. We won 2-1, and I scored 2. And I've been in really good form that season. And after the game, I got told there was a bid from the club that he was from, Ian. Again, I knew nothing about the club. I'd never heard of them. We were playing Sporting Lisbon the next night, and I just got told, just have a watch the game tomorrow night. They're playing Sporting Lisbon. Watch the game tomorrow night. Have a little look at it and see what way things are. And they beat Sporting Lisbon 1-0 the next night. Mario Rondon scored the only goal. Who ended up being my teammate then not long afterwards. But I remember looking at that game going, "Oh, right, okay. I need to take notice of this now. They're obviously, I might never have heard them, but they're a decent team. If you've beaten Sporting Lisbon 1-0 in the league, you're not a bad side." So yeah, there was obviously a bit of to and fro and then between the two clubs, and then things got agreed, and everything got done then on the last day of the deadline. Luckily for me at the time, well, very luckily, I suppose in the end, the day I was to fly, 2 days before I was to fly out, I couldn't find my passport. It got missing, couldn't find it, so we had to go up to, I think there was I can't remember the second name of the man, but he was hugely involved. Charlie, he was a TD, and I can't think if he was involved in Shamrock Rovers in getting the stadium. Can't for love nor money think of his second name right now, which is really annoying me. But we got in contact with him, and he got in contact with the Minister for Tourism and stuff like that, and I had to go up to Dublin. We ended up getting an emergency passport that I could fly out and come back straight away on to sign the deal, get everything done over the line. And yeah, I was really, really lucky that we had that connection at the time. That was the Shamrock Rovers connection to get the deal done. He was probably looking at it thinking, "Oh, we can get the." He's after scoring 2 against Rovers the previous week and get rid of him out of the league. It might be better for Rovers, but be forever grateful for the people who helped out at that time. And as I said, yeah, I moved over to Portugal then. It was a brilliant time over there. I really loved it. Standard of football was outrageous. It was just probably too good for me in the end. But as a young player going over and playing with big teams over there, playing against some unbelievable players at the time, and getting that opportunity was brilliant, and one I'll always remember and cherish.
And you were 3-2 down away to Porto at one stage, and you got the equaliser, you assisted the equaliser, and that was a team with Falcao, Hulk, Moutinho. Like, what was that like? Like, even playing at stadiums like that, playing against players like that, and then getting an assist. Like, how was that occasion for you?
So that game was the best atmosphere I've ever played in football, because they won the league, and it was their last home game of the season, so they were getting presented with the trophy. But they got presented with the trophy before the game, something I'd never ever seen before. So like, there was a complete carnival atmosphere there. There was quite a lot of I think there was a group of about 10 to 12 people from back home that were over for the game as well in Porto. There was 55,000 people at the game. Just a little side story on it. The fella who scored the hat-trick, Pizzi Fernandez, for us that day, I remember sitting down with the sporting director in the January, just coming up to the end of the January winter. He used to bring me out for dinner every now and again, because he knew that, I was over there kind of on my own type thing, and a decent bit away from home, so he'd always look after me. So he was telling me that we had him on loan from the season from Braga, and he was saying, "Oh, well, I think we have a deal agreed to sign Pizzi on a free transfer. They're going to do it at the end of the transfer window. We have 2 games between now and then. Once they go on, we're gonna get it, as long as no one else comes in from." So that was okay. We played Sporting Lisbon and Braga in the cup, the League Cup, in the group stages of it, and Braga allowed him to play the game, or the game against them, and he scored a hat-trick against Sporting Lisbon and 2 against Braga. And then word came back very quickly that he's not allowed to go on a free transfer fee anymore, and he ended up, after the game against Porto, the last game of the season, second last game of the season, he signed for Atletico Madrid that summer for 25 million. So they almost had a 25 million player for free. But he was a fantastic player. He's gone on to captain Benfica for a few years, win loads of titles with them, but yeah, it was brilliant to be involved in that game. You know, we were down to 10 men. Nelson Oliveira got sent off, I think, when it was at 3-1. So yeah, we had nothing to lose, and I came on. They said I got an assist. I passed him a ball, and he scored from 35 yards. So it's not really an assist as such, but I'll take it. It was good to play in the game. The atmosphere was unbelievable, and again, they were playing Braga to about 10 days later in Dublin in the cup final, the Europa League final. And I remember after the game, Andre Villas Boas came over and shook hands with me, and he just said to me, "Is there anywhere good to go out in Dublin?" afterwards. So that was just something that I thought was always funny at the time, and yeah, it was they were unbelievable. Falcao, to this day, is probably the best performance of a player I've played against in the games that he played against us. He's the best header of a ball I've ever seen, and I'm a Man United fan as well. And when he went there, obviously injuries killed him towards the end of his career. But I just wish we got to see the best of him over in England. And when he went to Atletico Madrid, he was unbelievable. But to see how good he was, it's just a shame his injuries happened, because he could have been one of the best strikers there's ever been potentially. With his timing of the ball, the headed was just, I've never seen anything like it, and his movement was unbelievable. And then you obviously have other players like Hulk, fantastic, Joao Moutinho, James Rodriguez. They ended up being all right, having all right careers themselves. So yeah, it was brilliant to play against. But again, that's the level I was playing at, and it was just probably too good for me at the time. But unbelievable to be involved in.
And how did you find adapting to the lifestyle over there? Like, obviously, were you over there living with anyone? Like, were you learning the language, or like, what was the kind of experience like for you living there?
I was going to school in a couple of evenings a week, learning the language. I could understand quite a lot of it. Trying to speak the dialect of it and stuff like that was a bit difficult. I remember my Portuguese teacher the first night I met her, she said, like, this is going to be harder to learn than Chinese. And that's probably the worst thing she ever said to me, because straight away I had a mental block. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be really, really tough. Whereas I think if you just let it happen. But like I said, I could understand quite a lot. And the manager's English, Rui Vittoria's English was decent. So he would be able to explain everything to people. I could pick up some of the words very, very quickly in football, just because it's the repetitiveness of it all. But then he would bring me across to the side and explain everything. There was a few players there who obviously were, an Australian player there, Jason Davidson, who was fluent in Portuguese, who was able to, translate things to me very, very quickly. He was a left back, and the majority of the time we were on opposite sides, because I'd be up that end of the pitch, and once things were being said, it would be easy for him to just translate it across to me very quickly, which was very clever of the management to do, I think. If that's what they deliberately done it that way, it felt like it was done that way each time, but they were really good. So enjoyed it over there, and enjoyed the lifestyle side of it. I found it difficult initially because of the heat, and the hard ground, blisters on my feet and stuff like that. But I was eating food like normally what you do in Ireland, or like, you'd have your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner at 6 o'clock, and that was it. But like, they were almost like 2 dinners a day type thing. Their whole days were revolving around food. They'd get their lunch at 1 o'clock, and then they'd have something more like dinner at kind of 5 o'clock, and then 9 o'clock at night. Whereas I think I lost 2 or 3 kilos in the first week and a half, just because because of the heat, the sweat. You were losing a lot of body weight or water and stuff like that, and just trying to keep that on initially was difficult. But then once I kind of got used to it all, everything was fine, and really enjoyed it over there. I was in the north of Portugal, so far away from all the golf courses and all of that, but it was still very, very hot over there. But brilliant opportunity. It was a small village we lived in, like the town, like it's a small place, like just outside of, about half an hour outside of Porto, and just on that side of it, like it was a poor enough town as well. They loved their football. But everyone in Portugal was either Benfica, Porto, Sporting Lisbon. They were the big teams, and we wouldn't get many to our. We'd probably maybe get 2,500, 3,000 at a game. But it was too expensive for them to go to watch games. It was the ticket prices compared to what the average wage over there was quite high. But there was a core group of fans you would home and away, and they made me feel very welcome. You meet anyone walking down the street, they'd always try stop and have a conversation with you, even if they were trying to speak in broken English to me and I was trying to speak in broken Portuguese to them. They were very, very good to me, and I really enjoyed it.
And like you had a spell then at Accrington Stanley, and then you joined Grimsby Town. And after Grimsby Town, there was a lot of talk about you going to Dundalk at the time, and obviously they were like such an unbelievable team. Like at that stage, after you'd had your season at Grimsby Town, was there any kind of thought of going to Dundalk, or was that never something that came up?
No, that was the Dundalk thing, and I don't know where that came from. I never spoke to Dundalk at the time. When I left, but just before I joined Grimsby, I spoke to a couple of teams back in Ireland, but my intention was to stay in England. At the time, the league probably, I always looked at the league over in Ireland, and rightly or wrongly, my view at the time was there was so few full-time teams that if you went to one of the full-time teams and things didn't work out with you, you were potentially always a year away from being out of a career, back playing part-time and stuff like that. Whereas it's obviously very different now with the majority, all bar Drogheda being full-time in the Premier League, and they're going full-time. They're even doing, I think they have a hybrid model at the minute. So, it's very, very different now than what it was maybe 9 years ago. So again, I think when I left Grimsby, or before I joined Grimsby, I spoke to Linfield, to up in the north. I spoke to Shamrock Rovers indirectly, because Pat Fenton was the manager at the time. I spoke to them indirectly, but no, I stayed over in England and just stayed over there and just was happy to be over there, playing over there. I said to you, there was more full-time teams over in England. There was more chance of, if things didn't work out somewhere, you would always get another club type way. Now, whether that's the right way to look at things or not, I was always kind of trying to be as positive as I could about it. But even then again as well, financially, it was a big difference from what teams in Ireland could offer at that time, compared to what our teams in the UK could.
And in May of that year, then with Grimsby, you won the National League promotion final against Forest Green. Like, what was that like, playing in Wembley and everything? That must have been an unbelievable occasion.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic. I grew up with the FA Cup final being one of the biggest days of the year. The build up to the game at Wembley, and I always wanted to play at Wembley. Now, granted, I didn't think it was going to be a National League playoff final. It was always wanted to be the FA Cup final, but luckily I got to play there, and it was brilliant. It was everything you could dream of. It always seemed to be, whenever there was a game on at Wembley, it was the hottest day of the year, no matter where it was or what it was, and it was the same that day. And thankfully we won. And as I said, I was lucky enough, again, similar enough to winning the trophy at Rovers the first time around. So this is brilliant. Played at Wembley and won. I played at Wembley 5 times in my career, won the first time and lost the other 4. So at least I got one in. I suppose we played a week later in the cup final as well, the FA Trophy final. So I got to play twice at Wembley that week, which was brilliant. So just, we were delighted to be promoted at the time, and obviously it was the icing on the cake for me with the season I was after having, and scoring the goals I had scored, and it was important that I felt like while it was my best season in my career up to that day, it would have been all worth nothing if we hadn't got promoted in the end. So thankfully we were able to do it, and it was brilliant. Like that day at Wembley, again, loads of family members over watching the game. The parade the couple of days after in Grimsby, and just everything was just fantastic about that. I loved it.
And then you eventually then moved on to Newport County. Like, you had some amazing experiences there, particularly in the FA Cup. I just wanted to ask you about the first one of those, which was the 1-1 draw against Spurs and Rodney Parade. You scored the goal and Harry Kane got the equaliser. Like, what was that day like? Because that is probably one of the most amazing experiences ever for any Newport County fans.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I remember we weren't sure what sort of a team Spurs were going to bring. We didn't know whether they were going to go a little bit weaker, play some younger players. It was obviously a lot of excitement when the draw was made, and the day before the game, I think Dele Alli put a photo up on his Instagram of him and Harry Kane travelling on the private plane that they had. So we knew straight away, well, they're coming over and they're coming over to play. They're not coming over to sit on the bench. And then the team sheet came in and the manager just came in and was kind of like, we had a little laugh about it. Every name he was putting up just was getting better and better. And then obviously got to the end and Harry Kane was the final one. And I was like, right, yeah, this is going to be fun. We kind of just said to ourselves, look, we've nothing to lose. Let's go out and give it our best shot. Keep it at 0-0 for as long as possible. Break it down into 10 minutes, 15 minutes, get to 20, get to half an hour, try get to half time and work that way. And geez, we got to half time, we were 1-0 up. And I remember going in at half time and I went straight into it because I scored just before half time. And as I was walking off the pitch, the camera came straight over and it was literally right in my face. Like they were, like as you see in the Premier League games, and obviously we wouldn't have been used to that. So I was walking in and trying to keep a straight face walking in, because this was just like my mind. I was like, Jesus, I'm just going against Spurs live on telly. We're 1-0 up, we're beating them 1-0 with all their millions and millions worth of players. So I went straight into the toilet, locked the door in the toilet, just sat in the toilet and just had just start laughing. Just like I just needed a moment to myself just to be like kind of going, this is actually happening. Like this is funny. Like, you're not expecting it, but then we went out and we put in a really good performance in the second half, and late on we got caught. Harry Kane scored, and we got brought to a replay. So it was just disappointing we couldn't hold on in the end. But again, look, I suppose the silver lining of it was that we got to play against them in the replay at Wembley again. For a lot of lads, it was their first opportunity of playing at Wembley. Because Spurs were obviously renting at the time while their stadium was being rebuilt. So again, that was a great experience until the actual game started, because while the pitch at Rodney Parade was a bit of a leveler, the Wembley pitch was a little bit better than our one, and they could keep the ball a bit more, and it felt like the biggest pitch in the world that night. But it was brilliant. Brilliant to have kind of that experience, and I think that experience helped us a lot then for probably the next year as well, and helped us on a run. Having that kind of nearly moment against Tottenham, especially for the Leicester game, I suppose, because it was a very, very similar experience. We scored in the same. We went 1-0 up against Leicester in the first half with a header in the same goal as we'd scored the previous year against Spurs, and then I think it was almost identical minutes that Harry Kane and had scored in, and then Leicester scored in. It was like, are we going? Is this Groundhog Day type thing? But while we probably should have lost the game against Spurs in the end, because of obviously when a team like that scores against you later on, you sit back and you just try to hold on. We did the opposite against Leicester. We went straight on the attack, like almost from kickoff, and we got a penalty quite soon after that, and then that was probably a big learning moment from us from the previous year, and thankfully Danny Ward went the wrong way and I scored, and kind of got us that big moment that we lost out on the year before by drawing with Spurs, but beating a team who had just won the Premier League I think 18 months previously was a huge achievement for us.
And like, what do you think it was in those games? Like the fact that you scored against Spurs, you scored against Leicester, then you scored the next round against Middlesbrough City. Like you scored in all these games, like you scored in every round. Like what do you feel like it was? Like, do you feel like it was just a confidence, or like was it just on the day things worked out, or what do you think it was?
I don't know. I just think the way we played suited me again. Like I was having a good year. I was after scoring. I think I was after scoring the first year with Newport. I scored 16, I think, and I scored 23 the next year. So I was scoring quite regularly. So if a chance dropped, and I always fancied myself to take it, and it just, I don't know, just one of these mad coincidences. Like, I tried no harder in those games than I did in a league game, like against Forest Green or Crawley or whoever it may be, Morecambe, any of those teams. I tried the exact same in every game I played. There was no anything else. Maybe you just had more of an opportunity against those teams on the on the break or anything like that, because they'd be a little bit more expansive. So I don't know. It was just crazy, but equally unbelievable as well. I was like, I think I remember the BBC doing an interview with me like before we played Millwall. Like, there's like a little documentary thing like that we're doing, and there was like I think I was 2 or 3 rounds away from breaking the all-time record of scoring in consecutive rounds in the FA Cup. And I think Stanley Matthews and Stan Mortensen, I think, were the two who had done it. Like, and it was like crazy, like being mentioned in the same breath as those players, and what the FA Cup kind of done for me. It was just, I don't know, it was just brilliant. It was just really, really good time. The pitch was a leveler. Don't get me wrong, like the pitch was a leveler. We were lucky to get all those games at home, bar the Middlesbrough game, the first one, which was away from home, and we scored in the 93rd minute. Matty Dolan scored the equaliser against the team that released him 7-8 years previously against his hometown team. So it just, everything just seemed to fall right for us in the FA Cup that year, even down to the symmetry of Matty scoring against his team who released him, his hometown team, all of that. Like, it's just, there always seemed to be a story with us and the FA Cup, and yeah, it just was what it was. I don't know. I can't give you an answer on why it was, but it just always seemed to work. It just, out of faith, it must have been. I don't know.
And like I said, then eventually the run came to an end against City, who ended up winning the FA Cup. Obviously, they were, completely dominating everything at the time, the league, the FA Cup. And like, you still scored in that game. Like, what was that kind of experience like? Like, they had a very strong team out again, like Foden, Mahrez, Silva, a lot of their big players. Like, what was that like that day?
Believe it or not, one of my biggest regrets in football is not celebrating that goal properly against Man City, because I blame myself for us conceding the third goal because I didn't celebrate. So we got back to 2-1 in the 89th minute. And I was after scoring, and I'm thinking in my head, because we had a long throw at the time, and thinking we'll just get one more chance here. Almost get the ball back and get it back to the half line. Stupidly here, I'm thinking, we can get a draw against Man City here now. And then they scored about 45 seconds later. So I say to the lads weeks afterwards, I said, if I just celebrated that, I said, at least we would have held on to 2-1 for a little bit longer, because everyone looks at the score now and thinks, it was 4-1. It was an easy win for them, but like at 89 minutes gone, it was 2-1. We should have went 1-0 up in the game. Tyreek Backinson missed an unbelievable opportunity. It was a great save from Ederson in the first half. So we should have went 1-0 up and been 1-0 at half time. We got to half time 0-0, and then, as I said, they scored the 2 goals. Again, I stupidly think we can get a long throw and get one more chance later on. But that'll tell you the belief kind of we had at that time in the FA Cup that we can get something here. And then unfortunately they scored very soon afterwards. But as you said, like, I think that was the big breakout game for Phil Foden, and he's done all right so far for himself, hasn't he, in his career? And they were the players we were playing against. And Son against Tottenham was like, pace he had was like something we hadn't seen before. Sané, Mahrez has this chop. He's going to chop it, and Dan Butler would say to us after, I knew he was going to chop it. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. So it was brilliant for us to play in those games. Brilliant to play against those teams. And Man City were, brilliant with us. Afterwards, Pep came in and spoke in the dressing room and just said to us, look, anyone wants anything signed, just go straight into the dressing room. They'll give you their time in there, and to be fair, quite a lot of us went in. I actually went in and I just spoke to Brian Kidd for about 15 minutes, because Brian Kidd was the Man United assistant manager when I was going up, and I was more interested in asking him questions about Man United and Alex Ferguson than probably going over and getting stuff signed by any of the players, and that was a fantastic moment to have all that, and to have a few moments in the dressing room as well, speaking with Pep Guardiola as well. Like, just, you're talking to geniuses there, and for them to give us the time they did was brilliant.
Well, that just showed a level of respect, like that you'd obviously played so well, like, that they were giving you that kind of time. Like, what was like the likes of Guardiola to speak to? What were you kind of talking about?
So I remember the day before, he did a press conference the day before, and he name-checked 3 of us in it. And I always remember, like, thinking back to that, like, that was kind of a real... They're taking this game kind of serious. Like, he knows players' names. He wasn't just naming, like, just saying the surnames of players. He was naming the players, like, first and second names, like, and what threats we had, and he knew all about us. So they weren't disrespecting us in that sense, and that was something that stuck with me. But then after the game, I remember we were walking across the pitch, and I've got a brilliant photo of myself and him shaking hands together, and he spoke to me for about 25-30 seconds on the pitch, like, and he just, again, his knowledge of football is unbelievable. Everyone knows that, but to the detail of it, he was able to say, to me, congratulations on the scoring run you've been on this year in the FA Cup and from last year as well. And they'd seen all the goals, and he said, look, you can be really proud of yourself, type thing, and well done on scoring today again, like, and keeping that run going. So he knew all of that, which was, again, me, a League Two player and the best manager in the world, potentially of all time, coming over and knowing a few little things about me, like, I'm walking off the pitch feeling 10 foot tall there, like, and it might just be a little thing to him, but that was a massive thing for me. And as I said, it just shows the respect that he had for us as a team. And I know our manager at the time, Michael Flynn, I know he was unbelievable with him, with some of the access he allowed him afterwards and going up to watch Man City training, and he still stays in contact with Flinny now, and like, he's invited him out for dinner up there as well, and little things like that. Like, it just shows you the class of the man. And obviously that's just outside of the football side of it, and the football side of it, he's a genius. The way he has his teams playing are outrageous. It's outrageous. He's changed football for the better. And it's just, everyone tries to copy him, and that's the biggest compliment you can pay anyone. When every team is playing football now, to try play it at Pep Guardiola way, like, so. It was just great for us as players, like, and I know he spoke to a couple of the other lads as well, and then they all would say the exact same thing, like, and you're not just saying it because he's Pep Guardiola either, like, it's not like some lads are making stories up, because why would you, like, it doesn't matter whether, usually it'd be the other way, people would be saying bad things about him, but I think everyone who's ever been in his company have nothing but good things to say about him, which is, brilliant. There's not many people you can say that about.
Yeah, exactly. I remember seeing on the BBC that it was 70,000 was the value of your squad, and 450 million was the value of the squad at City on the day. Like,
yeah,
like the fact that you were able to put it up to a team like that for, like you said, large periods of the game. And, like, was there any players in particular on that day, like we touched on Spurs earlier, that you kind of thought this guy's just a different level? Like I said, they were playing the likes of Sane, Silva, Mahrez. Like, was there anyone in particular that you thought this guy's just a different level?
I felt Foden was coming through, like, and obviously because it was one of the first games we probably have seen him play, and he was gliding across the pitch. That was like a bumpy pitch, and it wasn't great. But there was one moment in the game where David Silva just took the ball out of the air on the half. It's dropping about 30 yards out of the air, and he's took the ball on the turn, and Scott Bennett was up against him, and for like weeks afterwards, like, that clip would just end up in any analysis session we'd be doing, just so we could all just have a laugh at him, like, just to like marvel at the touch of David Silva. Like, we could be playing Colchester 3 weeks later, and all of a sudden this clip would magically appear in, like, everyone would break the ice for stuff like that, and we'd all get to the stage where you're expecting this clip to come in, but it was just like, Jesus, it was just unbelievable touch. But again, like, that just shows you the level of player you're playing against, and yeah, they were just levels above everyone else we played, like as good as Tottenham were, and obviously Harry Kane is at the level he is. He's probably the best striker in world football at the minute. But as a whole, that Man City team were just streets ahead of anyone we played. In the FA Cup runs and yeah, it was unbelievable.
Coming back to Waterford, was that an easy decision for you? Like, was that obviously football wise, you've joined an amazing team, an amazing manager, but was it a big decision? Was part of your family part of it as well?
Yeah, it was. It nearly happened the year. Well, they were interested the year before in the January, but Woking obviously we were going so well in the league that they didn't want to let me go. They'd never been in the playoffs before, and I was a huge part of the team, so it just wasn't going to happen there. But yeah, like I've said this before. I never thought I'd move back to Ireland purely because of like I've done my coaching badges and stuff like that. But like there's probably 140 full-time teams in the UK with academies, everything below all of that. So the coaching levels are like, and then you look at the coaching over here, there's not as many full-time roles. It's a small pool over here. So I was always kind of looking at that, going, oh, maybe it'll be in the UK for it. But then kids come along and your opinion changes very, very quickly. And it was just, it was a family decision to move home. So my wife's from Carlow as well. We're 40 minutes from Waterford. You know, her family home is 10 minutes from my family home. So grandparents are there, and the cousins for our kids to grow up around. And yeah, so it was an easy decision in the end to come back. But if you had have asked me before 4 years ago what would have been, I would have said the opposite. Because we had no kids at the time, and now we're getting Owen. If he stayed over in Wales, he's turning 4 in the middle of August, and would have had to start school this September. And we would have been taking him out of school, then to come back over here and come back the following year type thing. So it was the right decision for us to do as a family. It was perfect opportunity. Everything just fell into place, and we're just really pleased with it.
And football-wise, like you said, you never wanted to come back to Ireland, or you never imagined it. Like, but is that a kind of testament to the growth of the League of Ireland now? The fact that you're willing to come home, and there's so many full-time teams, like you said, 9 full-time teams out of 10 in the league.
Yeah, as I said to you, like the reason I wasn't going to come back was purely because of after football, rather than it wasn't because of the football over here or anything like that. The way the league is growing is fantastic. Jesus. The first 2-3 weeks of the season over here, I don't think there was a ticket to be got for any of the Premier League games, which was unbelievable. That you could never have said that before. You know, the growth in the league is huge. The publicity in it all is, like, in fairness, it's been promoted really, really well now. Obviously, social media is a huge reason for that. And it's become such a competitive league as well. Which I think that makes it more exciting for people to watch too, where there's every week, no matter who's playing who in the Premier Division, you're going, I couldn't call that. Like, it wouldn't be a shock if it was if anyone won that game. Whereas previous years you probably hadn't got that. You probably had, someone is cut adrift by quite a bit at the bottom, and you go, well, there's a home win straight away, But yeah, it's really good the way the league is going at the moment, and long may that continue, and I hope it grows. And it kind of has to go like that now with the new Brexit rules and all that, with players not being able to go over at 16 to the UK anymore. They have to go over at 18, and it puts clubs in a stronger position financially then, that they can ask for more money for those players, and for the players themselves, they'll be going over in potentially having played like the likes of Sam Curtis, who's gone over now, but he's played men's football for a couple of seasons, in competitive games, and that's going to stand to him going forward. He's not going over as a young kid, learning his trade over there. Although he is a young kid who's going to contradict myself, he's a young kid who is learning his trade over there. He's played probably 60, first team meaningful games over here before he went, and that was one thing I was really glad I'd ever went through the academy system in England, because it meant I got to go play all those games in meaningful environment and playing in men's football, and I think it's given me good grounding going forward for my own career.
And what does the future look like now for you? Like, you've still obviously got plenty of years left in football by the look of things. Is the future for you coaching, or do you not see yourself retiring for a good couple of years still? Because, like I said, you're still scoring so much goals at the moment.
Well, I don't see myself retiring for any time soon. I think I can go for quite a lot longer. I probably would, like as I said, I've done my coaching badges. I'm doing a degree at the minute in sports fitness and coaching, so trying to add on to that as well. So trying to keep my education side of it up, keep my football kind of brain ticking over as well, and outside of playing games. So probably will be coaching, but hopefully it's not for another quite a while. I still, even though I'm getting on in years, I don't feel like I am body wise. So as long as my body says okay, I'll continue to play.
No, definitely. You definitely have a good while left by the looks of things this season. But Padraig, I just want to say thanks a million for joining. I really appreciate your time. Amazing football journey, and good luck for the rest of the season at Waterford, because you're flying at the moment.
Thanks very much, Adam.